Freedom's greetings, Helldivers. Ervin here, and today we are going to be ranking the APW-1 Anti-Materiel Rifle. The massive sniper rifle is appealing in every game, and Helldivers 2 is no exception. This weapon, even with its initial very weak release date, has always had a cult-like following of Helldivers that swear by its effectiveness. But bit by bit, patch by patch, it's been on its way up the ranks throughout the game's history, now finding extremely stable and frequent use in many loadouts. But how good is it really? Well, we're going to be taking a look into all of the stats behind the weapon, ranking it appropriately based on those stats, and ending on a final score to find out. As always, the data collection and rankings will be based entirely on difficulty 10 Super Hell Dive to give you the most accurate information on how this weapon holds up in the super endgame. First, let's talk about the AMR's versatility. This metric is based around the weapon's target flexibility and how it handles different threats throughout the game. With an armor penetration value of 4, technically speaking, there is a point on every enemy in Helldivers 2, except the Barrager tank that can be destroyed utilizing just armor class 4 penetration. Unfortunately, however, there is still a significant number of targets where less than class 5 at a minimum make this much more difficult, such as the weak points located on the backs of tanks, cannon turrets, and chargers, which all require you to have a flanking position for the AMR to be effective. The Bile Titan, while it can be brought down with just AP4 by breaking its sacks and continuing to fire into the center of its belly and tail from beneath, is far from an ideal situation and not something anyone should be attempting in any circumstances outside of last ditch efforts or style points. This all being said, however, the majority of enemies in Helldivers 2 can be brought down with just class 4 penetration from convenient circumstances, such as the Hulks, who, although they only take half damage through their head weak point, do go down in just 2 hits from the AMR. Objectives like the mortar emplacements and anti-air emplacements also cannot withstand class 4 pen, and so on. All this in consideration, the final difficulty with the AMR and its target effectiveness comes in with its relatively low for a support weapon durable damage of only 30%. This makes high durability enemies like the Factory Strider's eye weak point and the gunship thrusters soak more fire from the AMR than they otherwise could from, say, the autocannon, which has 100% durable damage. Throw in the factor that this support weapon also lacks spawner closing utility, and we can safely give the AMR a versatility score of just 5. Next, we're going to talk about its ease of use. The AMR has a slower than average swivel speed, but funny enough, can be drawn and instantly fired in the direction of your camera before the gun is even properly readied by the Helldiver for some strange reason. While the AMR can be fired as fast as you can pull the trigger, which is satisfying at point blank range, it also sports some very heavy autocannon level recoil that requires you to pace your shots well or fortified armor to compensate for it. The AMR has a 4 times variable optic, which is as good as it gets when it comes to the Helldivers 2 arsenal, making it fantastic for precision shooting at long ranges. However, the lack of third person reticle makes it oftentimes much more difficult to utilize properly than any other support weapon in the game, due to having to trade away spatial awareness in exchange for the precision of a still to this day slightly misaligned scope with some extreme height over bore issues. This causes the average AMR user to be more vulnerable to retaliation while lining up shots, and while the tactical reload speed of the weapon when won from empty is a decent enough 2.6 seconds, the magazine capacity leaves a lot to be desired at only 7 rounds, forcing regular users to spend a lot of time reloading. It's safe to say when the term ease of use comes up in the Helldivers 2 sphere, the anti-material rifle is right behind the heavy machine gun before it received a reticle in everyone's minds. The best I can do here is 2 out of 10. The AMR is the most difficult support weapon to utilize well in the entire game. Next up is raw firepower. The AMR packs a very mean punch for something with such a variable fire rate, dealing 450 ballistic damage per squeeze of the trigger. This, unfortunately, coupled with its class 4 penetration value and 135 durable damage, leaves it just shy of many one-shot kill breakpoints such as the Hulks, Alpha Commanders, and Devastator Torsos, but the two-shot kills are very respectable. and Devastators and Bile Spewers are brought down in just one good headshot all the same. The theoretical DPS of the AMR is also absurdly high due to its 350 potential RPM, giving it the highest burst DPS of any weapon in the entire game at 2625. As the magazine capacity is only 7, however, the true DPS is only 715. Still a respectable fourth place behind the machine gun support class and above all others. The ammo economy is overall a bit on the low side, but not remarkably so, and while I do wish its 135 durable damage was a bit higher and it does lack any kind of meaningful stagger at only 20 points, I think it's safe to say the raw firepower of the AMR is unquestionably top shelf at a 8 out of 10. Enemies of democracy will be dropped dead by the bottom of every magazine in the hands of a skilled user. Now let's talk about synergies. How nice the weapon plays with your team's potential gear, as well as other weapons, stratagems, and armor that you may choose to bring along. The AMR has some fantastic synergy options, none more so coming to mind than the fact that it pairs extremely well with the jump pack for the purpose of gaining the high ground and vantage points to better utilize the AMR's powerful 4 times variable optic. It pairs extremely well with just about any primary in the game due to being a pseudo primary replacer support weapon, similar to the machine gun category, allowing it to do any heavy lifting that your primary might be fallen short on. This weapon, having no fabricator clear, does lend itself very much to the grenade pistol meta, which is very common in many loadouts, and the AMR is a welcome addition to any team heading into a gunship patrol modifier super hell dive against the automatons, functioning as a very capable anti-air weapon. Notable primaries it pairs well with would be the Plasma Punisher against the automatons, where it brings area of effect lockdown and arcing projectiles that can be fired to great effect from high vantage points that the AMR already desires, while needing a strong gunship answer in its support slot. The Cookout or Incendiary Breaker and the Terminids, which both sport very poor TTKs against the very prevalent Spewers and Alpha Commanders, enjoy pairing up with the AMR for its fantastic answers to both of these threats, and the AMR itself benefits greatly against Terminids by these fire hit markers that these weapons produce, allowing it to enjoy a world where it actually has a third person reticle while any enemy is currently set ablaze. This particular synergy has ignited a personal love for this weapon for me when it comes to the Terminids, and I will happily award the Anti-Materiel rifle a 9 out of 10 synergy score, as it pairs brilliantly with just about any loadout in the game, leading it to have many of the fans that it does have today. You would be hard pressed to find a set of gear that you couldn't throw an AMR into and say that it wouldn't be decent. It's now time to rate the weapon's overall effectiveness against the individual factions, starting with the automatons. Overall, when it comes to the bots, the AMR has some very workable TTKs against the entire cast and can damage any enemy reasonably well, even the factory striders, through the eye or door weak points. However, being forced into the first person in order to make precise shots is most of the time a very dangerous endeavor, as this faction shoots back with aimbot while attempting to line up your meat hand with the target, creating situations where being aim punched out of your shots makes the weapon downright unusable should the enemy's attention be on you, even when they're standing miles away, as they remain extremely accurate regardless of that range. Oftentimes, the AMR does live in the shadow of the autocannon against this faction as well, which, while I do normally like to view these weapons in a vacuum, it's difficult to ignore, as outside that optic, the autocannon is doing everything that the AMR does, but slightly better with fabricator clear, stagger, and a third person reticle. Unless you're bringing a jetpack, personal shield, or supply pack, you would be hard pressed to find a realistically good reason to bring the AMR over the autocannon in its current state for almost all situations. This leaves me with an automaton score of just 6 out of 10. As while the weapon is very workable in the hands of a skilled user, there are better options available. For the Terminids, there are some obvious complications while taking this weapon in your support slot, such as it taking over a magazine to kill a charger through the rear weak point, being relatively ineffective against Titans, and taking several magazines to clean up an impaler through its vulnerable face. It does clear up the medium enemies very well that give the very prevalent bug primaries, such as the Incinerate Breaker and Cookout, a hard time. Overall, it's a workable weapon against the Terminids, but harder anti-tank options or the machine gun class of support weapons paired with role reversed primaries such as the Jar 5 and Plasma Scorcher are often going to be more optimal solutions. Throw in the fact that this weapon only really reaches its potential in this faction when enabling its third person reticle through fire ticks, and the best I can realistically do here is again a 5 out of 10. Totaling it all up, this leaves the APW1 anti-material rifle with a final ranking of just a 6 out of 10, or C tier. While the AMR can pair well with just about any loadout, it is almost never the best solution to any given problem, and only a workable one. The theoretical damage might be top shelf, but the difficult ergonomics, handling, and lack of a third person reticle make it extremely challenging to reach its full potential in practice. While the weapon is undeniably extremely cool, I am still in the camp which feels it could use a bit of love in a few departments to make that challenging usability feel more justified, as what you currently get out of the anti-material rifle for dealing with its quirks is not currently satisfying enough in my humble opinion. If you agreed or disagreed with my verdict, feel free to let me know in the comments below and we can have a further civil discussion on the topic there. Thank you for watching till the end, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
And now, another helpful tip from General Brash.
Erevan has gone above and beyond to break down the exact reasons our anti-material rifle should be much cooler. For this, I am ordering all active Helldivers to like, comment, and subscribe to his channel. Failure to do so will see a return of the ACOG.JPEG.
Brash tactics. Use them or die trying.